What value could you provide right now to a player development department, to a player development team, to a player development professional? If they hired you at this moment, while you listen to this podcast, if your phone rang by a certain university or to say certain professional organization or wherever you want to work, maybe it's high school, maybe it's a youth organization. If it rung right now, what value could you bring today to that organization, to that franchise, to that department, to that team? Hello, hello, hello. My name is Ed Jones, and I'm the host of this podcast, the Player Development Pod. This podcast was created to bring exposure to the player development field. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it with me. We're on part 3 of a 5-part podcast series about beginning, starting, and player development. And today we're talking about value. Part 1, we talked about doing your research. Part 2, we talked about no one cares about your passion until you have a plan, creating a plan. And now we're saying, what is that value? So if you've done that step, okay, you've done your research on player development, you've done your research on player development professionals. Okay, boom, that's 1. Okay, now you created a plan. Okay, boom, that's 2. Now that you have that plan, what is the value you can provide right now? This is something that may come up if you get to this point where we're kind of walking through communicating with people or walking through starting. But if you get to the point and you're in front of a head coach or a professional, whatever it may be, you have to show them how you add value to what they are doing. How do you enhance the experience, the lives of the athletes who will be under your influence? Think about that. I'm talking right now. The phone rings and someone calls you and they say, what we need you to provide something by the end of the day. Day 1. It could be an internship. You never know what can get you in the door. It could be an internship. It may be a job shadow. You may be thinking you're going in just to do an informational interview in person. What if that person looks at you and say, what can you provide? You've been here 2 hours. What can you provide? What value can you provide to us right now? So you need to look at that. It goes back to the plan. You've already created the plan, but inside that plan, what is the value you can do right now? What's the number? What's your strongest asset to the team? What's your strongest asset in your life? When you look at your leadership abilities or your personality assessment you may have taken, what is your strongest asset? What is your greatest value that you could bring right now? Since we're talking about value, there's definitely a lot of value in attending the Player Development Conference, which is May 19th and 20th. It is virtual. The link is in the show notes. Information is there. You do not want to miss out on this if you're trying to get into player development. Now, got to give some shout outs because the Player Development Conference does not happen if we do not have sponsors. So shout out to our platinum sponsor, Mrs. Terrolyn Nunn, who's in the real estate field, and she is helping connect athletes and real estate, helping athletes not only, and it's more than just purchasing, but understanding how real estate can help them and understanding how athletes can do that right now. Maybe you are a professional who has athletes who are making NIL money, or maybe you're an athlete listening to this who's making NIL money. You can start in the real estate game right now. So shout out to Mrs. Terrolyn Nunn, who's a platinum sponsor of the Player Development Conference, and shout out to Athlete Transition Service, or ATS, who is a gold sponsor of the Player Development Conference. ATS helps athletes as they transition from playing into whatever is next for them in their lives. Once again, shout out to these organizations, these beautiful individuals who have come to sponsor the Player Development Conference, because it does not happen if they do not help with the load. So thank them. All their information is in the show notes. Check them out. You will not be disappointed. Now, you're listening to this, you're thinking about value. As you sit on that, I want you to also look at other videos. So part 1 is there if you haven't listened to it. Part 2 is here if you haven't listened to it either. And then there's some other videos that I have, other playlists that I have about that can answer a lot of questions about player development. Like and subscribe. Make sure you like and subscribe and check those videos out.